welcome. This is the Sherborn Select Board meeting of Thursday, May 28th, 2026. It is 6:30 p.m. I am calling the meeting to order. In attendance is everybody on the Select Board: Dan Sickle, Jeff Waldron, Paul Durancis, Marion Neutra, and myself, Stephen Tsai. Can we start by having the Assistant Town Administrator read the agenda?
Good evening. So after I read the agenda, the board can vote to remove or approve, to amend or approve the agenda. I had no request for public comments for tonight. Items can be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. We have a presentation tonight on Sherborn Road Walks Guide. Schmer is here. Item number 2 is the consideration of various grants to the Sherborn Fire Department. Zach Ward will be here for that, Fire Chief. Hazard Mitigation Plan update. Martin Pillsbury from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council is sending his assistant in his place tonight. Status of the FY26 budget and year-end transfers. Deb Sessions, our Finance Director, Town Accountant. We'll talk about that. Item number 5 is discussion of transfer station operating procedures and policies. Item number 6 is discussion of the Land Acquisition Committee membership. Item number 7 is discussion on sending comment letter to the planning board regarding the special permit application for Meadowbrook Commons. For the consent agenda, we have the TA payroll warrant, various one-day pouring license for Pauline Bounds, Ken Otterfree, Dave Werble, and Pauline Bounds again for a private party at the 1858 house. Select board reports and TA updates.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Yes, Jerry.
Yeah, requests that as part of item number 7 or right after item number 7 that you consider adding an agenda item to consider a letter of support to be sent to the city of Framingham for the water connection that would serve the North Sherborn Water and Sewer District. We had a meeting this morning with the mayor's office and they suggested a letter of support. It's timely in that it's possible that we'll be before the city council prior to your next meeting.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the agenda?
Yes.
There was reference to the year-end transfers, but I never got year-end transfers.
I don't think we're voting on the year-end transfers. I think it is just a status report by Deb Sessions.
So when are we planning to do that then? July?
The first
July,
meeting in
yeah.
July that we have.
First week in July.
It has to be done before the 15th.
Just want to check to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
So I would move approval as the agenda as read by the Assistant Town Administrator.
As
Second.
amended?
As amended as well.
Yeah, second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right. Item number 1, presentation by Art Schnorr about the Sherborn Road Walks Guide.
Okay. You all have a copy of this, page 7 in the map?
Yeah.
We kill color trees also in our version.
Oh, yeah. But it was I who did deface this map. And I'm going to tell you why. On this piece of paper are 17 walks. Of those, 12 are loop trails or loop walks on roads. And 5 are out and back walks, as I call them. So loop walks are more interesting because you don't retrace your steps. But of those, if you see, you can probably see that right at the top, there's number 7, Green Lane, Hunting Lane loop, and right next to the right there's the Rockwood Street, which is an out and back trail. So there's loop walks and then there's out and backs. Now, the reasons for doing this was to encourage safe road walking, because our roads around here are pretty rough. A lot of them are people go fast, they're pretty narrow, etc. The second is to highlight the beauty you can see from Sherborn roads. I mean, usually you're in a car and you just zoom past them, but if you walk it, you see things better. And 3, it allows people to construct an on-road walk with off-road walks, which are covered in Sherborn walks right here. But that doesn't discuss roads in here. That's why we thought that this document, which is free, will complement this right here. And so I want to say that I've been working on this a couple of years, more like I've been not working on this a couple of years. But it started a while back, and they had a lot of good input from people. And I want to mention Marion Neutra was great. Kelly McClintock, Sam Nelson, Rob Wolf, Steve Petty, and Sean Colleen all had significant contributions to this. But I'd like to just sort of insert something into your mind's eye right now. Just think of South Street with those big white pines along the road there, and the views of the fields from Pleasant Street over there in the western part of town. Horsebrook Farm, which is on Brush Hill Road, at that elbow right there, which is a really nice view right there. The Douse Orchard, looking at that from Green Lane. Bogastow Brook Road, it's a place not many people go, but it's a great forested walk, no telephone poles or anything. It's really going through forest. A lot of time you don't have any houses you see even. Leland Pond, Mill Pond Spillway on Mill Street, and the Farm Road Fields. These are all things you can see, and they're all covered in this 11-page PDF document right now. I should say we'll probably put this up on the website at some point, but right now, if you want a copy of you already have a PDF copy here at the moment. Now, this document was just approved by the Public Safety Committee. They probably the thing that we were worried most about was we've listed 9 roads we thought were too dangerous to walk. And they were Route 115, Bullard Street, Coolidge Street, Kendall Ave, Maple Street, except for a very short stretch where there's sidewalks. Route 27, North and South Main Street, except where there's sidewalks. Route 16, Washington Street, except where there's sidewalks. Western Ave, north of Washington Street, south is okay. And Whitney Street. So those are kind of the places that have pretty heavy traffic. But I must say there's also, this book also covers other places to walk, like there's 25 scenic roads the planning board voted on. But these roads are pretty much, they're narrow and at times move pretty quick. So you have to have heightened caution to walk there. And then there's also dead end streets too. I mean, they're great places to walk too. There's 26 of those in town. Got that from the fire department, a list of those. So, I mean, I think it really tells a story about how much open space we have here. I mean, it's really remarkable. And back of this book, you see the green shows where all the open space is. It's all throughout town. But of these 17 walks that are shown on this map right here, guess how many have a trailhead on it that goes to a public land? And want to hazard a guess?
16.
16.
That sounds like it wasn't a guess.
It was a guess.
That's right. I mean, isn't that incredible though? I mean, if you get an aerial view of this town and Dover too, you can see that we're a patch of green amongst a lot of concrete and non-green. But this also shows how we could actually tie together a road walk with an off-road walk. Now on here, I think this is the first map we've ever done this on. It actually shows the trailheads that are on the roads. So they are all over the place. That's probably the number that struck me most when doing this. Now, the one road that does have that lacks a public accessible trail is South Street.
Mhm.
But if you keep walking a little further into Natick, you get to the back of Broadmoor and have something there. But still, that's pretty amazing. And there are a couple of walks here. You can see we've talked a lot about trying to make the town center more accessible, by walks and by bike and everything. And the town center walk, which is number 12 on the right side of that map right there, there's that covers North and South Main Street, and it has a number of trails on the route right there. It's a pretty long walk, about 2 hours roughly. But I think this could be useful in thinking about how to make Sherborn a more accessible place. And I even made on a walk number 7, which is the Green Lane Hunting Lane walk, loop. I broke. I didn't. Actually, part of it is not on roads. Part of it is cuts through the Unity Farm, Rockwell woods. So that's the only thing right there. Now, I'm moving through this pretty quick, which is good, I think. I figure in 10 minutes. You've any questions so far? Anybody?
I'm just gonna add a quick comment, because I'm still chair of the Boy Scouts group in town. So we had one scout who made one trailhead at Bailey Trail.
Yeah.
That was his Eagle project. And then the Ward Lane Trail, which was really buried in brush, we had an Eagle project that was basically clearing that whole trail, near the playground and where the new tennis courts and pickleball courts will be. That whole loop around that pond, Ward pond there was really made more accessible recently.
Oh, that's great.
And because before you couldn't, you bushwhack through there. So
Now, I started off, I'm a member on the board of the Sherborn Forest and Trails Association, is Marion. And I used to be head of the planning board and conservation commission, but Forest and Trails is always my favorite committee, actually. I mean, not that I know all the other jobs are important, but it's one where it was really close to where who I am. So that's where we are. So anyway, I'm retired, been retired 3 years. So I just got going on this thing and it just grew with help from other people. And so, like I said, I think we'll put this up on the website. And because it is free, and this is $20 right here. So I sell them whenever I get a chance. But I guess I'm just trying to spread my enthusiasm for, walking in the town. In fact, George Fisk was walking over, he's walking down Hollis Street, and Tom Ermson was out there getting his mail or something like that. And Tom Trainer was walking with George. They were walking one of these trails right here. It was the Apple Street Loop, number 1, right there, which is a pretty long walk too. It's about 2 miles. And so they said, "Hey, we're walking this trail, this road walk right there." So things are starting off, So that I just wanted to let you know about this because of that this town really has a lot of wonderful trails to walk, and the roads are a part of that story. And I think the more people can love the fact that we have all this green open space, we can keep having it in the years to come. So one last thing I'll say is that the Forest and Trail Association used to be all equestrians, and I was the only walker when I joined up when I first moved here back in '86. And but they're real happy to have me because when they had equestrian events, they needed somebody to park the cars. So I got to do that. So, but now it's changed. We've got more mountain bikers on there, and I call them the new equestrians because they're the main people that go out and clear the trails right now. We have bow downs and so forth. So I just want to put in a plug for mountain bikers, even though I don't have one. I still am a walker. And I walk every day. So, doing here. Yeah, come with me in my 10 minutes. Yes.
Just want to thank you for walking us through these trails.
Well, you're welcome.
Art, if I can comment, it occurs to me as you speak that, we have a big grant to redesign transportation through town center, including pedestrian and bike transportation.
Yeah.
And I can think of 4 trailheads that you can take right from town center right away, maybe 5 or 6. If we had signage, people would know where to go.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
including the Bay Circuit Trail goes behind Pine Hill there, kind of.
Right. Yeah, because when I moved here, I had to actually go to the library and get the open space plan to figure out where the open space was around here. And that's what led to the first version of Sherborn Walks, which I did in WordPerfect 5.0 for DOS. back in 1992.
So,
All right.
Art, this is great. Thanks for, doing this and pulling it all together. I guess putting it on the website would be great. And I guess we should all try to think about ways of getting this out to people so people know about it. Signage could be great, and just get this out to people so they can
These
use it.
books are still available in the select board offices. They have the books down there too, which I recommend because it's got more detail and explanation in it. But
Yeah. I'm a big fan of them.
we have them still
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
in the select board
So
office.
here's a PDF, beautiful
Yeah,
PDF complement to that.
Would it be reasonable, you think, for the town to basically just print out several copies that, maybe have a stack of them in the library and, in town hall? Some people could.
I've got some for you right here.
That would us. Thank you.
Wasn't sure if you-
I do have one question. This is excellent. But you did mention that you ran it by public safety. So we have several members of public safety here, but are there any concerns about sort of encouraging more foot traffic, especially with stuff where it's meeting and biking and flashing? I live on Green Lane, so I know how great it is there, but I also know just how dangerous it is on Hunting Lane. I mean, a lot of people walk their dogs there or just walk themselves. A lot of people ride their bikes, When you're going uphill on Hunting Lane, you're going pretty slow on a bike, and there's a lot of cars that are coming both ways on Hunting Lane pretty fast, and there's not a lot of width there, So it always makes me a little nervous when I'm driving up or down Hunting Lane and, kind of seeing the pedestrian traffic there, and I'm like, it's a great walk, but I'm always a little bit like, this is a little dangerous.
There's no question. That's right. And that's why there's really three categories of road. There's dangerous ones we say don't walk on. Two is ones that are requiring heightened caution, like you say, that road there. And a lot of the scenic roads are like that too. And then the third are roads that are safe. I mean, nothing's completely safe, of course. Dead end roads, places like that. Bogsville Brook Road's another good example as well. So you're right. That's you got to watch out. And that's why we make sure we went toward the Public Safety Committee, because they're the ones that really. Yes.
Just a suggestion that when anybody goes skiing, they have the ski trails marked like this, diamonds or circles and so on, so you know where things go. Is there any way to have some volunteers kind of mark the beginnings of trails with some kind of something that would go into a tree and be a marker?
Yeah, we're working on that right now with Forest and Trail. We're planning to put fairly large wooden signs up there that mark the trailheads so people can know where they are. It'll take away all the mystery of the trails.
But it's not just in front of the trail. These aren't straight lines, they meander around.
Yeah, they do. So you really have to sort of watch. You're right. Like the trustees, they're really great down there. They put intersection numbers up there so you can figure out where you are and map and what's going on. And it sort of relies on the trails being walked enough or ridden upon. So it's obvious there's a route there. The other thing too is that in the book, we really took great pains to say, you gotta have street smarts to walk roads here. And most people do. And all the loop trails, we do it in a counterclockwise motion, because that way you're tending to face the traffic coming at you. Although you can't always walk on facing the traffic depending where the road is. But nonetheless, that's the idea. So we very much thought about this and tried to, cars are 3,000-pound missiles. And you got to watch out. You get hit with one of those things, man, you're in bad shape. So got to be careful. So that's my spiel.
Callum?
Yeah, just as you mentioned, street smarts and common sense, I think it's very important. But Paul also touched on skiing, and it made me think of one problem I've noticed a lot skiing lately, and I see it with runners and walkers and joggers, is earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has, especially the younger generation, they have earbuds in, they're listening to music.
Yep.
There's a lot of collisions on ski slopes now as a result. People don't hear something. We see it on the roads too, especially when They don't do street smarts and walk facing traffic. They walk with traffic on behind them and they don't hear vehicles.
Yeah.
So as we encourage people to be out there, which is important, make that message about being smart, being aware of your surroundings, not having music on so loud that you can't, hear what's coming.
Now, this is version 16. I think that's version 17.
Yeah, maybe also in your next version, if you like, all of the walks here are just in red, but of course you've got the list of the roads that require heightened caution. So maybe you could mark those roads with a different color or something, make them either make everything orange and then the slightly more dangerous ones make them red. That way just with a quick visual you can tell that, oh, this loop looks interesting, but there's two legs of it are red trails, and so there's might be a little dangerous, and I don't know.
Yeah, like red, orange, green or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. But
I got a trick question for you, Art, and Paul's going to help me with this, I think. There's a requirement that one select board member walk the entire perimeter of the town once a year. And I've been on select board, it's my third term. I haven't met anyone that's done that yet.
I've done it.
Have you done it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're on the perimeter, part,
Yes, yeah.
but
it's not
might
easy
have
to
to
do.
have
You opted out to just swim the farm.
yeah, I swim the farm pond, tell who's been in the boathouse, the pump house.
How long would it take to walk the perimeter of the town?
I don't know, but it's actually a requirement, isn't it? I don't know what document it's in.
It's a statute.
It's a statute. Yeah,
For regulation.
yeah.
The town could be fined, about $10 for not doing it.
Yeah.
So let's go.
We're a town that's 4 miles by 4 miles. That's 16 miles of perimeter roughly. That's a long.
Done in one day, or can it be done over multiple days?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So
Just let me know the day you're doing it, so when we get the calls about the suspicious person.
I want to do it in Zach's dune buggy that he's got at ATV.
I'll mix it up.
Well, it's nice to live in a town where
Yeah.
they have those kinds of challenges.
Right.
Well,
Right.
hey, thanks for those suggestions.
Thank you. I have a minutes together.
I'll deface that map some more then.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks for moving me up on that.
No problem.
Diane.
Anything.
All right, next we have consideration of various grants to the Sherborn Fire Department. Zach Ward.
Thank you. So, go through this real quickly. So we have two grants for the board to consider accepting. The first is a Department of Fire Services Safety Equipment Grant in the amount of $9,364.12. We're using that to purchase firefighting nozzles, our self-contained breathing apparatus masks, which are issued to each individual member of the fire department, and a personnel accountability system for Fire One. And I just want to note on this grant, we had a town meeting article, a free cash article for hose and nozzles. And the funding for the nozzles was pulled out of that article before town meeting because we knew we were going to be successful with this grant. So this did help offset some cost in terms of our town meeting request. And then just real quickly, the other grant is our, Yeah.
What is a personal accountability system?
so it's how we account for all of our members. So every member is assigned tags. When they go to any working incident, gas leak, a fire, any type of incident within a building, we account for where they are at all times, what floor they're on, what part of the building they're in, if they're out, if they're at the ambulance getting a rehab and everything. So we track where everybody is. Usually it's one of our officers or mutual aid chief that does it. And we also do it for other towns, but we all have a common system that we all use in between communities. So the latter doesn't have one of those. They're in the command car. Sometimes based on logistics, if we have two incidents at the same time, we don't have one available at an incident. So we're able to get one. Okay, this grant. Thank you for that question though. Just real quickly, the other grant is our annual SAFE grant that we get. It's in the amount of $1,866.30. If you see us at the library fair, at our open house, or at any other public education events, this grant funds the plastic fire hats that the kids get and all the other goodies that we give out every year. So, thank you.
Great. So I move that we gratefully accept two grants and apply them to the purposes for which they were awarded.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. All right. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm actually going to kick off the next item, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I'm going to put on my emergency management director hat. So over the last year, we've been working on updating the town's hazard mitigation plan. We got a grant from MEMA about 18 months or so ago to update this, and we're kind of coming up on some of our final steps. They include a couple of public meetings, including this one. All of our work that's gone into the plan has been actual other public meetings through our local emergency planning committee. The process has been managed by our consultant, which is the MAPC. Martin Pillsbury was our primary project manager. He actually did the town's last update. He couldn't be here tonight, so we have Radoshi Sinha, who's an environmental planner with the MAPC. She's going to be doing a virtual presentation just to update the board on where that is. All right, I'll get out of the way.
All right, thank you. Radoshi, I see you're online. You can feel free to take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Ward, for the introduction. And good evening, everyone. And thank you to Mr. Chairman and the board for having me here today. My name is Radoshi Sinha. I'm an environmental planner at MAPC, which is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And I'm here to give you a brief introduction into the hazard mitigation planning process, as well as what we've been doing so far with the plan. So if you don't mind, I will just share my screen. Hopefully that will be visible. Great. Is that visible, the screen?
Yes.
Amazing, great. All right, so I'll be starting with like a brief background into the process, what a hazard mitigation plan is, and then we'll talk a little bit about the process that goes into hazard mitigation planning. So the Hazard Mitigation Planning Program was established by the Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, which encourages cities and towns to adopt a hazard mitigation plan. It's usually set on a 5-year update cycle. So your town, like Chief Ward said, already has a plan, which was updated 5 years ago. So we're just working off of that to make sure, we have an improved and better version that's consistent with the current conditions. And you can see a screenshot of the plan as well. And what happens is once this plan is approved by FEMA, your town would be eligible for the FEMA grants such as BRIC. So hazard mitigation isn't typically a household name, but what it just means is planning for natural hazards that may happen. And you can see some of them listed here, like we cover flooding, wind events, winter weather, geologic hazards, fire, extreme temperatures, drought. I will note that this doesn't apply to disasters such as, disasters that are caused by us, such as chemical spills. So these only are restricted to, this plan is only addressing natural hazards, which are listed here. And this is a pre-disaster plan, so it's setting us up for planning for the disasters and measures before they actually hit. So it is reducing impacts from natural hazards through strategies, including policy programs and projects. And we ask ourselves what preventative actions are being taken now to reduce the future risks and damages, and what are the additional actions that can be taken in the future. So essentially, it's breaking and weakening this consistent cycle of disaster and rebuilding, as you can see here. So the point of having a strong hazard mitigation plan in place is so that we can weaken this cycle and prepare for the disasters much better. When we talk about addressing natural hazards, it's not entirely possible to address them without considering the impacts of climate change, such as the increasing frequency and duration of heat, drought, precipitation. We've all seen how erratic the weather has been for the last couple of weeks, right? So that's just a testament of when we are planning for hazards, what are the types of conditions that you have to take into account. So essentially, our understanding of that overlap between natural hazards and the effects of climate change is helping us create those conditions where we can define mitigation measures that are adapting to the expected impacts of climate change. So that's a form of hazard mitigation. And that's essentially what this hazard mitigation plan update is going to do. So hazard mitigation plan can be simple measures as well as complex measures. It's not a very well-defined list. It can be a wide range of things, and it can be as simple as, defining measures for property protection, like building elevation in case of floods, or structural improvements and infrastructural projects such as improvement to drainage, culverts, and dams. Or it can be something that's requires a little more long-term planning, such as public outreach and education. So you can see from this list that there's a whole host of mitigation measures that you can put into one of these plans so that it sets you up to prepare for the future. So that's a little bit of a background on what the hazard mitigation plan looks like and what it entails. So we're going a little bit into what the process is. The entire process is guided by the local team. And I will be remiss if I didn't mention the local team. You can see their names and titles, who they comprise of over here. And it's led by Chief Ward. And just want to take a moment to give like a huge kudos and thank you to the team, because without them, we would not have been able to compile all these materials or, just compile all the local knowledge from folks, which is helping us build a very robust plan. So the local team's role is to participate in 4 local team meetings, which is where we do like the workshopping of the mitigation strategies, take, an existing conditions case, and we look at all the hazards and what was there in the plan before. We establish and endorse project goals. We provide data and local expertise, and then we finalize the priority actions for what is going to be there in your final plan. So thank you again to the local team. And you can see that it's a pretty extensive development process. We're, well in the home stretch right now. So in the first couple of meetings, you can see we were doing identification of the hazards and mapping, as well as updating critical facilities, hazard areas, and reviewing existing mitigation strategies, as well as updating them with new ones. We're here in the first public meeting. So what's going to happen now is after this meeting, we're going to be in the home stretch of preparing the plan, and we'll hopefully come back to you to present like a high level findings and outcomes from the plan. And then we will send it off to MEMA and FEMA for their final review. And once that comes in, you will approve the plan formally, and Sherborn will be eligible for grants. So what we've heard so far, just some examples of natural hazards. Of course, the ones that have come up most frequently are flooding and brush fires and wildfires. So you can see that there's a couple of examples, like Coolidge Street experiences overflow flooding from Meadowbrook Stream. Harrington Ridge Road experiences flooding quite a few times in the year, especially after heavy rainfall. Sherborn has a lot of potential for and past cases of wildfires on heavily wooded and vegetated properties, as well as we've all seen with this winter that heavy snow and blizzards can affect all travelers and residents as well. So what we usually do in these cases is we create a map of the municipality with all these the areas of hazards mapped out. So it might be a little hard to see, but we take a stock of the critical infrastructure, which are those green dots, which usually cover fire department, police department, public works, all your municipal departments, as well as community facilities, which are indispensable to the town, like churches, schools, senior centers, communication towers, and medical facilities. These are just some examples. We have an extensive list of all the critical facilities that we've taken stock of that will be in the plan. And we also map out the hazards, so the flooding sites as well as brush fires. And you can see there's a lot of brush fire areas which are outlined in red, as well as flooding sites which are mapped in blue. So all of these we have quite a few maps in the plan. All of these will be there in greater detail. We also cover other natural hazards like heat, wildfires, drought, extreme precipitation. And even though something like an earthquake has a lower probability, we still cover that no matter how low the probability is. It all falls under the natural hazards. Sherborn was fortunate to have been a part of a watershed-wide assessment, which was the Charles River watershed model that was created. It mapped future risks and future flood events after taking stock of what the historical flooding data was. So this is just an example to show, and one of our local team members provided this very kindly. It's extremely important data, which again we'll be including in the plan, is just to show that there are models like this that exist, which are backed by data, which will be important for the town to consider in taking decisions to update critical infrastructure as well as any kind of planning implementation projects. This is just a snapshot from your own backyard to see that, the excellent team fighting the wildfires and these cases that have come up. So I just put those pictures here. This is just to bolster the fact that having a strong hazard mitigation plan in place is meant to set you up to implement as many of the measures possible to prevent these kinds of things from happening. So like I said, it's a pre-disaster plan. And just a couple of examples of what we've seen. We typically look at some dates and years of any kinds of specific major events that have happened, say, in the last decade or so. So these are just some examples of major snowstorms or flooding events that we've seen. And again, these are all detailed in the plan. So what we do is essentially, this is an example of the existing mitigation measures that the town already had, and this was outlined in the plan. So we're updating the plan. So we take stock of what already exists. There's a lot of great things that the town already does for multiple kinds of mitigation. I'm not going to read these out, but you can see like infrastructure improvements, catch basin clearing, tree trimming for resistance to winds and things like that. So we take stock of this. And the next step, which is the final step in the local team process, is to actually look at these and develop new recommended mitigation measures based on the existing conditions and the local knowledge. So that's what we did for the final meeting. So that's the entire process. Like I said, we're at the home stretch. We're going to be working on developing the draft plan now after this, and we'll be coming back to you with a presentation in late summer. And then there'll be a public comment period, which will be available to all your residents also to send in comments about the plan and if they have any feedback, after which that will be for a period of around 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll send out that information. After that, the draft will incorporate the feedback, submit the draft to MEMA and FEMA, and after the review and after the board's approval, it will formally be sealed, and the town will be eligible for all the grants. So we do have a designated email address that folks can write into. So I'll request Chief Ward to share this out as well later. But please feel free to write to us. We're always looking for feedback and input about if there's anything that's happened in your own backyard. What hazards have you been facing? What are you most concerned with? And what mitigation strategies are you interested in seeing? And we'll make sure that we also find a way to incorporate that into the plan. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi. So I have a couple questions, I guess, for you or any of the members of the hazard mitigation team that are present. One would be, were there any recommended mitigation actions from the previous or the current mitigation plan that the town has not undertaken? And then in your preliminary review so far, have you identified sort of major actions that are likely to be recommended over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. We most definitely have done that, and that's one of the exercises that we do at the local team meeting. One of the local team meetings is where we sit with all the existing data and the mitigation strategies that were there in the previous plan. We literally run through them and do a checklist of which ones apply right now, which ones should we carry over, and what are the new ones. I will defer to Chief Ward if he wants to comment, but we are workshopping those and putting those in the plan. Right now, to be quite honest, I can't recall what the measures are right off the top of my head right now, but we will, in the second meeting that we come back to you with, we will have all of these findings, and that will have a comprehensive outline of, what were some of these measures and what are some of the most relevant measures. So that's something we'll present to you at the next meeting once the draft plan is ready and out for public comment.
Great, thank you. Sean, did you want to say something?
Well, I mean, for an example of one that was high on the list previously and is still high on the list, it was actually a few slides earlier, the Coolidge Street, what we now call Small
Right.
Bridge, the culvert on Coolidge Street is one of the highest priorities. And again, we're going round after round asking the state for funding for that purpose. It's slipping my mind right now, any major ones that came off the list, there was a few.
Yeah, I think about a quarter of them or so, just to give her the rough number, were addressed in some way. Some of them had grants that I believe the town applied for years ago when the plan first came out, but maybe weren't successful. Things like that. So there are certainly some that stayed on the list, but they're not relevant anymore.
Sure.
But there's definitely some carryover.
And then are there things that we've identified that we know are going to be major sort of focal points over the next 5 years? And it could be specific to Sherborn or even trends that you're seeing across various municipalities in, throughout Massachusetts where, okay, this is a new thing that everybody is dealing with that wasn't, such a focus 5 years ago.
So the climate section was actually added, and that was a FEMA requirement. So 5 years ago, our plan did not address climate change or droughts, if you will. That's actually a required area of the plan now. So that is one big area that we have to address throughout this process. Yeah.
If I may, another area that actually previously I don't think it existed even as a natural hazard when the last round of plans were done was invasive species that's added as a hazard as well. And I believe Sherborn does have a couple of measures to address cyanobacterial bloom and other invasive species related measures. So that's another example of so it's constantly developing, I think, and in the next 5 year cycle, there might be a couple of others hazards added as well. But and the other thing I'll mention is in the carryover, there were a couple of measures which we discussed that the town had already, it was checked off the list, which is also a mark of success because that means that infrastructural project was completed. So I'll just note that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right.
We'll be back in a couple of months.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Look forward to
Thank you so
seeing
much.
the draft plan.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have status of the fiscal 26 budget and year-end transfers. Deb Seafring. Yeah, there you are.
Yeah. Well, good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. I just wanted to give you a quick update on how we're looking at coming into the end of fiscal year 26. I did a projection at the end of, actually in the middle of May after the last warrant, and it looks like we're going to be under budget by about $480,000. So this is a summary of all the different departments where you can see which ones are over budget and which ones are under budget. On the left-hand side are the budgets that look like they're going to be over budget. And then the ones in the middle look like they're going to be under budget, and it kind of gives you an idea by the dollar amount of what they're going to be under budget. And then at this point in time, the school says they're coming in right at budget. Jeremy, do you mind going to the next screen? So here is a little bit more detailed so you can see how we got to this. Going across the screen, it's pretty much, the budget plus or minus the encumbrances, any reserve transfers, and then the supplemental that we voted on at town meeting to come up with where our total budget is. Then you have the spending to date. The estimated spending is pretty much straight line, the number of warrants that we've had with remaining warrants to go. Unless there is something that I knew, was going to come in differently. The estimated spending is pretty much a calculation. And then the adjustment is anything that I heard from the department heads about maybe spending that's going to happen in the last month based on things that are going on in their department, which ends up giving us a total spending and then the over and the under. So you can see the departments that are going to be over budget, I tried to give you just a brief explanation of why they're going to be over budget. For instance, the select board is going to be over budget based on the salary contract. The finance committee, they had extra postage. Town buildings, Sean has had some major repairs, utility costs are higher. The fire, that is, I talked to Zach today, and we still have, based on the year-to-date numbers, and we still have to pay for the engine 3 repair. So that's that additional $20,000 is basically for the repair that is yet to be paid for. And debt service, we're over budget basically because when we prepared the budget, we didn't really know what the interest rate was going to be and how much we were going to have to borrow. So that's kind of where we stand right now. I'm not asking to do any year-end transfers, but we just thought it would be a good idea to give you an idea of where we're standing as we go into the end of the fiscal year. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Just a little more context. Deb gave a very similar presentation to advisory at their request. So we thought it would be good to give the same to the select board. Just so you know, there are the ones that are projected to be in deficit. Several of those are currently in deficit. And, all this would be rectified by year-end transfer. There's ample balance available in the overall budget to cover those transfers with surplus that would, I think at this point, $480,000 fall to free cash. Deb also did a revenue projection for FY26. Deb, maybe a little summary of that as well.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be about $200,000 over what we estimated. A good portion of that is due to additional motor vehicle excise and interest. Everything else is, plus or minus maybe 10%, but those were the two big ones that are helping us come in ahead of what we had projected.
So that 200,000 in additional revenue beyond the forecast and this 482, both would fall here for cash to be certified for use next go around in your budgets.
Okay. And sorry, you have already presented this to advisory or you're going to?
Well, I presented this to advisory prior to town meeting, and it changed a little bit since then, since the last time they've had a meeting, but we were still definitely looking like we were going to come in under budget.
Okay. And what was advisory sort of general thoughts on the budget situation here?
At that time, they were trying to decide if we should have the departments that are going to be over budget come in and kind of explain why they were over budget prior to the end of the year. And there was some discussion going on, but I never heard a final result. So we're just moving along as we have historically.
They expressed some desire to have a little more formal policy as far as how reserve fund transfers are dealt with and the end of year transfers.
Yeah, I'm aware that advisory is interested in sort of altering what we do during these last couple months of the fiscal year. I'm just wondering whether it makes sense to attempt to implement any of those this year or just have the discussion, create a policy and apply things next year. But I don't know.
We did one change already, which was to not use to fund the legal bill at $80,000, whatever the dollar amount was. So now we funded that in a more realistic way. So that's already happened.
Yeah. Dan?
I've heard some from advisory, and as already noted, I think they would like advisory, as noted, would like to change the procedures and have a more formal procedure for handling reserve fund transfers and year-end transfers for departments that go into deficit, hinging off, the state requirement that departments can't deficit spend without proper authorization. So I think it'd be very hard to do that and make those sorts of changes this year, because I think there's a conversation to be had about how to do that. And after a set of procedures are in place, that needs to be clearly communicated to every department head and budget maker. But I do think that's a conversation that we'll want to have over the next year and think about.
I am wondering because one of the mechanisms is effectively to, essentially what we do together in a single sort of omnibus action is to balance everything with a one meeting and one fell swoop. But beginning in May, right, we can start doing those transfers by one if so desired. And I noticed that employee benefits is one of the budget lines that's quite well under budget. Is that one of the budgets that it is legal to transfer from in order to supplement another department?
Yes, you can transfer from there.
Because kind of what I see is that, okay, if we're projecting that in total, somewhere around 117,000 over budget over these six departments, and between the reserve fund and employee benefits, we have over $300,000 of probably pretty reliable excess. So we could probably, especially for the departments that are currently already deficit spending, basically do an early transfer out of the employee benefits and or the reserve fund. I think that one of the challenges with what advisory wants to do, I think at least reading various documents and memos from the DOR and whatnot, is of course certain departments that are already running a surplus might not appreciate having their budget getting cut before the end of the fiscal year. But I don't think that the employee benefits people would care. So I'm just wondering if it would make sense to essentially start that process a little bit right now, just for some of the departments to start getting into the habit that this might be what we're going to start doing in future years. And we could probably do that relatively painlessly starting this year, but I don't know if that's something that we would have any interest in starting. Paul?
The employee benefits, doesn't that reflect the changes we made in healthcare programs and things like that?
Yeah, correct. For FY27, the coming budget year will reflect that. Yes. For FY26, the way the budget has been running, but a few less employees took advantage of the benefits, so there's more surplus available for FY26.
So there really isn't an owner of that.
Right. Correct.
Those
funds is available for use.
There's a big difference between a department head operating a department and having either a shortfall or a surplus, and a category that's truly available for everyone. And we do have an obligation by the end of the year to eliminate all the deficits in all the departments, whether they were good ideas to have that deficit or bad ideas to have that deficit. We still have to clean it up.
That's correct.
So how would the rest of this board feel about essentially starting year-end transfers earlier than, the first week of July, which is when we traditionally do it?
I'd be very happy to do that, and I think it would help deal with the challenge that departments shouldn't deficit spend. We haven't been 100% strict about that, so that would be, as you said, a way to begin kind of getting into the habit of if there's a deficit, it needs to be taken care of.
Yeah,
but it would be a way of beginning to do that. And as you highlighted, the employee benefits line is a nice place to do that from this year.
Yeah, to me, it's just the vague windfall that employee benefits line, which isn't a manned department, can probably cover everything. It's a lot more complicated when I see that the police department is looking at a $50,000 surplus. So very good work, Chief Galvin. But I'm assuming that you wouldn't I would assume that you wouldn't appreciate that, next week, we just take 20,000 of that and put it into the select board's budget because we're, looking towards getting a deficit, so.
If you need it, you need it.
So that's where it gets a little complicated, but again, with 170,000 plus, surplus, in employee benefits and another 150 in the reserve fund, I feel like it might be a good idea to start making some of these transfers earlier, which I think is part of the goal of what advisory would like to do. And, in the meantime, we can work on developing a formal policy, but that doesn't mean that we can't start implementing some of it early. Just good fiscal management, right?
So I agree.
Yeah, I agree with the caveat that departments that are in deficit spending would have to be warned that this is a one-time bailout.
Yeah, I mean, I think what advisory is suggesting is that in the future, anytime, once we start getting into May, June, once it looks like a particular department is projecting to go into deficit, that we preemptively perform a transfer if available into that department so that they essentially don't run out of money before the end of the fiscal year.
And have the department come and explain.
Right, exactly.
Why they're likely to be in deficit.
Yeah, and the reserve fund, I think for some towns, that's the primary vehicle for it. Whereas, if a town has certain departments that look like they're running a significant surplus, especially for things like employee benefits or any other department that doesn't have employees that are relying on the funding, I feel like it makes sense to do that early if we can, without penalizing some other department for their good fiscal management.
Can I make a comment?
Mhm.
I want to assure the voters and taxpayers who are listening here that we don't have departments that are deliberately deficit creating and ignoring votes at town meeting. There are all good reasons why there's a deficit. If a major department like the police department will pick that because you have a surplus, but if they have injuries and missing officers or a big investigation or whatever, they're going to have additional costs that weren't anticipated, and you get into a deficit that way. And that's true of all the deficits. I mean, I have not seen anybody willfully saying, gee, my budget was under what I needed, so I'm going to go ahead and spend what I want to spend. That's not happening in this town.
I had another point,
Yep.
which is, I'm equally concerned about the ones that are turning back money because we made decisions of what could be in the budget, and if people are deliberately over budgeting so that they have a safety margin, we want to discourage that too, because we denied other departments that money. So we went through this with the schools, back when I was on the advisory committee, they would basically budget very high, knowing they were never going to spend it. They're buying new math textbooks every year, what it was, but over budgeting is almost as bad as overrunning on the budget because that's money that could have been either not put in the tax base or could have been used for other departments that we turned down. So if people are regularly turning back a lot of money, that's an equal warning sign, I think, of people that are either, quote unquote, padding the budget or not estimating well. So with exceptions being legal and snow and ice.
Yeah, and just to point out, even though it looks like we are aiming for a surplus or $599,000 worth of departments who are running a surplus, 158,000 of that is reserve fund, and then 172,000 is employee benefits. So we take that out, that's 280,000. That's less than 1% of the town's budget. Right. I don't think that anybody is deliberately over budgeting so that they've got a cushion. I think
No,
I do think that they're running a pretty.
It's just one other
pretty
factor
lean.
to analyze.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then when you look at the departments that are over budget, and then you compare that to the ones that are under budget, it's like there aren't major outliers really. It's like you're going to have a few budgets that are a little over, and luckily several budgets that are a little bit under. And so I think that generally speaking, everyone's doing a good job. I think advisory's point is just that, legally departments really shouldn't be deficit spending at all. And so when we can identify that a particular department is headed in that direction, we should try to, well, it's like hazard mitigation. We should try to take action to mitigate that before it happens so that no department is actually deficit spending. Okay, so then maybe for what should we do for our next meeting? We could always see if advisory has the ability to also join us in that meeting, because all these transfers have to be a vote of select board and advisory, right?
That's true. Yes.
Not technically the year-end transfers.
Yeah, the reserve fund does.
Or if you're using the reserve fund, yes.
So okay, but if it's just an interdepartmental transfer, then it does not.
If part of your year-end transfer interdepartmental, that's a select board action.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's probably good practice to have advisory as well.
Yeah.
Part of that conversation.
Yeah.
We've always included advisory.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, it's the logistical problem of trying to organize both advisory and select board to meet at the same time in order to tackle it. I know usually for the year-end transfer meeting, we try to schedule that many months in advance. Whereas here we're talking about just a 2-week notice for advisory. Like, hey, can you show up at our meeting in 2 weeks? But if we, certainly I think that the advisory chair and vice chair are often available. Nora, you're usually in attendance either virtually or in person anyways. So we can at least get advisory's input even if they can't call a quorum in time. But I don't know that we need to tackle all of these, like we could always identify the ones that are either already currently in deficit spending or are projected to be already in deficit by, 2 weeks from now. And we could tackle those. And then if the other ones are going to be close enough to July, that we can just handle those all at the year end as well. Okay. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else on this from anyone? Any other questions? Comments from the public? Nora, no. Sorry. Okay. Next, we've got discussion of land acquisition committee membership.
No. What about
Yeah.
transfer station?
Oh, wait, sorry. I was just going in order. Oh, yeah, right. Because transfer station was a separate packet. Okay. All right. Discussion of transfer pack, station operating procedures and policy.
So, at one of your prior meetings, you've expressed desire to review the current practices of how your transfer station and recycling center operates, including the swap shop. And to after that review, possibly more formalized policies regarding that. So, to help with that discussion, I formed a working group consisting of Charlie Tyler, Addie May, Dan Sickle, Sean Colleen, Amelia Landau, and myself. Met about 4 times. We've gathered information. We've discussed the current practices about the transfer station operates. We've gathered information from peer communities. A lot of that is summarized in the table that's in your packet. Gathered some sample policies from other communities. Those are also in the select board packet. The ones that we're having include Lincoln, Carlisle, Dover, Harvard, and Medfield. Those seem to be, from our opinion, good sample policies that you might follow, and are similar communities that operate similar facilities. And you've summarized a bunch of the findings in the policy table. There was also some questions about the volume of solid waste that is generated and disposed of and the costs. So those were also summarized in the table. It's also in the select board packet. That's sort of a little background summary. Any questions on that? I could go through the summary table on policy, if that's helpful.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
We were going to extend the current arrangement so that we had time to do this.
That's correct.
Was
Yes.
that done?
That is in process, and Sean and I met with the Wayne and Father this week, and the firms that we discussed are other regions.
Well, how do you guys want to do this? I would probably find it useful to have Jeremy hit kind of some of the highlights and summary points and differences.
Okay. So on the table, sorry, it's a little hard to read here. There's a lot in it on the screen, but it's in your packet. The way that this first table is a summary of policies. The top row is Sherborn. And then we looked at Berlin, Carlisle, Dover, Harvard, Alston, Lincoln, Medfield, Natick, Wellesley, and Wenham. We looked at the opening, how many days and hours a week their transfer station is open, whether they accept construction waste, commercial waste, landscape waste, if their swap shop is open to non-residents, how their transfer station is operated, if the town or community requires a sticker for access to screen. Tom, I believe it's being shared now. If a sticker is required, is there a cost for that sticker? Does the town utilize a pay-as-you-throw system where it's trash metering, where residents have to buy bags to fill their trash and dispose? And several of these communities have town-provided curbside collection. As far as hours a week, you can see it varied from 1 day a week in Holliston for recycling, though they have town curbside collection of waste and recycling, and just have a recycling center that they open at their public works garage once a week, and then all the way up to 7 days in Wellesley. They're open every day of the week in Wellesley, and Sherborn's currently open 5 days per week. Construction waste. Does the transfer station accept construction waste? Currently, Sherborn's policy is that 2 barrels of waste per week for construction debris is allowed. That's more or less what happens. That's a hard thing to monitor, but that's what the current policy is. Most peer communities do not allow construction waste. The ones that do allow it, but charge an additional fee, that being Carlisle, Dover, and Wellesley. Commercial waste, most peer communities do not allow commercial waste to be deposited at the transfer station. Several do, and the ones that do charge an additional fee, Harvard and Wellesley, for instance. Landscape waste really depends on space available.
On the commercial, what category do you put farms?
Commercial. Awesome. A business that happens to be a farm would be classified as commercial. Landscape waste varied. Most did allow for the collection of household yard waste. Those communities had the space available to compost. Currently, Sherborn does not have space available, so does not allow for landscape waste to be gathered and composted. Swap shop available to non-residents. For those communities that have a swap shop, not all do. Alston and Natick do not have swap shops. Most towns that do not allow out-of-town residents. It's solely for in-town residents. Harvard was the only other community that allowed non-residents to use their swap shop. Transfer station stickers. All of these communities that we screened require that transfer station stickers be on vehicles, fixed vehicles, to allow entry to prove that they're residents of the community. Several of the communities charged fees for those stickers. Many did not, similar to Sherborn. Sherborn does not. You do not charge a fee. You just prove residency to the town treasurer collector's office and are issued a free sticker. The communities that do charge costs mostly do have senior rates. I'd like to point out Harvard on this list. In that Harvard recently, about 2 years ago, apparently created an enterprise fund and has their solid waste and recycling program fully funded through that enterprise fund. They charge for stickers, and they also use a pay-as-you-throw program so that it's a self-sufficient program. That was the only town on this list that has it funded that way as its own enterprise. And the towns of Holliston, Natick, and Wenham all have curbside collection of solid waste and recycling as part of a municipal program. It's funded by municipal dollars.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Commercial waste, like most times people have a contractor, they bring in a dumpster to do it. So how is commercial waste defined? Is that generally a homeowner doing the construction themselves? Or if they have an outside contractor, almost always it's a big enough project where they're going to bring a dumpster in and not bring 2 barrels a day or 2 barrels, how often it is, you know what I mean?
Well, we've discussed that in the working group and asked what the current practice is. And there are commercial entities that do bring waste on their own.
Yeah.
Deliver themselves to the transfer station, and there was others that take advantage of a local vendor to collect the waste and then haul it to Sherborn's transfer station.
These for construction projects going on somewhere in town.
Even just business,
businesses, commercial enter.
No, I'm asking specifically about construction waste.
Oh, sorry, you said commercial.
Oh, I thought I said construction waste. I said most contractors would have a dumpster. So construction waste, I'm wondering what that constitutes. That's 2 barrels partially enforced.
That's the way it's outlined in your contract with the transfer station operator.
No, but I know, but
like I said, it's
more typically, who is, I'm not asking for the policy, I'm asking in practice, what constitutes the waste that's brought in the construction way? Is it small projects or, you know what I'm asking?
Be a little everything go.
I was just going to say, I think there are 2 categories. Hard to know how much of each. One category is I'm, replacing a kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Or a kitchen cabinet, and I've got a little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, wasn't like a whole kitchen.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of that, and it's not enough to rent a dumpster. So that's one category, and that's supposed to be, the 2 barrels.
Yeah.
The other category would be, that a contractor is doing a bigger project.
Yeah.
And they, just dump it all in the back of a pickup truck and they come to the transfer station. I don't know that happens a lot, but casual observation has said in, the past years that has happened.
But that's not going to be 2 barrels per day.
That's going to be more than 2 barrels a day.
Yeah.
And I think, and my understanding is that the folks at the transfer station are getting more stringent about that.
Yeah, okay. I just want to
I
understand.
think those are the 2 categories.
Barrels per week.
Per week?
It's per week. It is per week.
Yeah, whatever it is, but
Somebody could show up 2 subsequent days.
yeah.
Somebody's different.
All right. No, I just want a clarification of the categories, not what's happening.
There also could be a case of a contractor who lives in Sherborn,
Yes.
but does a job outside of Sherborn, and they put it in their truck and they bring something.
Okay.
Which,
I haven't thought of that either.
So there are, many opportunities. There's other avenues for construction debris, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Or at the dumpster, a waste hauler, and they collect it. It's hauled out of Sherborn, does not go through your transfer station.
Yeah.
And then I guess, so one thing to clarify about our permit currently that it only says residential waste, right?
That's correct. We look, you are issued an operating permit to operate the transfer station from Mass DEP. That was applied and issued some time ago. It does seem to indicate that it's for residential solid waste. That's not very clearly defined.
Yeah.
And it's really only one sentence in approval letter,
Yeah.
but that's what it seems to indicate.
But so it does seem to indicate that our permit only does not expressly allow construction and commercial. Now, would sort of the 2 barrels of sort of personal construction solid waste that still fall under residential permit?
It's not clearly defined in the
Okay.
permit.
Okay, Sean?
It's a little bit better defined in the contract with Lynn Waste. And it is written in there. What they do is a really good job of the things that are banned. And then a slightly less good job of things that are allowed. And it implies that it would be waste coming, that would typically come from a household and it's burnable. Right, so when you say construction debris, that does not include tile board with tile that you ripped out of your shower. That's banned anyway. So it's woody debris, which is where it's a really gray area because it was a part of someone's swing set that they took down and have no way to get rid of other than throw it in the wetlands or the woods or burn it.
Or dumpster.
Or bring it. Well, but sometimes it's not a dumpster. So, there should be a desire for the town to bring it. Whether it's 2 barrels, half a truckload like Dover does. Otherwise, people are not going to get a dumpster for,
Sometimes
a small portion of wood. So,
Or the bags.
Jeremy, do you want to take us through the second table
Sure.
before we get
Yeah.
too far?
We'd always come back to just give you a summary of the second slide. Sorry that it's not coming up well.
Sorry, we've got a copy.
So this was an attempt to compare the same communities using data that's available from Mass DEP. And where annually all towns have to report how much waste they generated and recycling they were generated and how they disposed of it. So there's a good database of all this information. So what we did here was compare how much trash is generated in Sherborn compared to those peers, and kind of put that in relationship to tons per person per year and tons per household per year, just to get a sense of how much waste is generated in these pair communities. And the results show that Sherborn generates more waste per household per year than all of the peer communities, and likewise generates more waste per person per year than all of these peer communities. Again, I mentioned earlier in the review of the policies that most of these communities do not accept commercial or construction debris, which likely contributes to this difference in in aggregate, the waste in aggregate divided by household numbers and per capita. And so on the right side of this chart, it was an attempt to look at the costs associated with municipal solid waste and recycling budgets. So I took available information on the overall budget that these towns and Sherborn expend on their solid waste budgets, and then equalize that and relate it to tonnage, household, and per capita and per ton. So it's a gross look at it. All of these communities operate a little differently. They budget a little differently. It was the only way I could find that was somewhat apples to apples to compare the costs that Sherborn and their community bear for solid waste costs. The results there show that on a per capita and a per household basis, Sherborn's budget is generally a bit more than its peers for solid waste, for the solid waste program, with the exception of the 3 communities that provide curbside collection. Happy to answer any questions on that. I think it's interesting data that you could use to then inform your policy discussions.
If we go back up to that first chart, under the construction waste and commercial waste columns, so Carlisle charges fee for construction waste, Dover fee for construction waste, Harvard fee for commercial waste, Wellesley fee for both. Do you know, how are those fees sort of like collected? What's the enforcement mechanism by which their transfer station knows that, all right, this person is bringing construction waste and the fee associated, okay, they have paid the fee, and I know that. And then two, do you know what the fees are?
Yeah, we have that information. I didn't summarize it here, and I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
For instance, Dover, with the construction debris waste, I think they do it by like half a pickup bed full, a full pickup bed full, had some like a lump sum cost. And that's the way they did it.
So when you show up with it, they kind of eyeball it and say, all right,
Well,
that's
that's
about
about a
half.
half a pickup truck, that's gonna be
Okay.
X amount, and they
Yeah.
charge it on the spot, and some sort of.
Yeah. Do you know, what kind of payment acceptance system do they have in Dover to be able to accept a payment on the spot?
I don't recall in Dover. I know Harvard had a punch card system that you can pre-purchase punch cards that for certain amounts, and you go and didn't utilize it, it gets clicked off.
Okay.
It's like getting a pay-to-head voucher.
Sure. And do you know how any of the other towns sort of collect their fees, or what is their general mechanism for collection and enforcement of the policy?
It's enforced at the transfer station. That's when things show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they either have paid ahead, they knew that they needed to pay ahead to get a voucher, or there was a method of payment at the transfer station.
Okay.
Set payment there.
Okay. So generally speaking, it was sort of per load, not like all right, you are a commercial entity, so you purchase an annual license for X amount, and it's $5,000, and now you can bring your stuff.
Mostly may be like that because they're a larger operation.
Yeah.
But the other towns are smaller, like the Harvard and Dover and Carlisle were a smaller, ad hoc as you go,
Okay.
as needed.
Okay. Mary.
Yeah. As far as I can see, Sherborn really has no facility for true construction waste. The towns that accept it for a fee, are they equipped to accept construction waste? How do they do it? I mean, I've been in towns where you can bring construction waste for a fee and there's a special place for it, and it's physically different.
Yeah, currently there's no facilities for that at your transfer station.
No.
Say it's in practice, some of your construction debris does end up sort of in wishful reuse through your swap shop. And after a while, when there's no takers, it ends up in your solid waste.
That's
Do you
my
know in
impression as well.
Carlisle and Dover and Wellesley, is the construction stream separate from rest of solid waste, or does it all go in
I
together?
think it all goes in.
It all goes in together.
Dover, some of both.
Okay.
Dover is generally going into the same solid waste stream. Sometimes they have an open top container, but it still goes to the same place.
And no commercial vehicles nor agricultural farm vehicles are allowed. Just to answer your question, pickup truck full load is $90 in Dover, and pickup half is $45. And that's really for the resident to come in.
Right. Okay.
So if a builder comes in, they can't do it. Commercial is not allowed in Dover.
So I've got a bunch of thoughts on this. First off, thanks to Jeremy and the others on the working group who did a lot of work to pull this together. It's really, really helpful. It's really, really helpful information. And thanks to staff at the transfer station too, who I think have recently been doing more to kind of enforce the sticker policy. And I think that's had a number of beneficial outcomes for the town. My read of the numbers is that we're an outlier relative to other towns, and that, our current setup is pretty costly to taxpayers. The numbers Jeremy showed, we're paying to remove a lot more waste than other towns, 34% more per household than Carlisle, 48% more than Dover per household, at more than $100 a ton to get rid of that. That's adding up to a lot of money, tens of thousands of, if we were like Carlisle, if we could get our numbers down to Carlisle, that's, tens of thousands of dollars, that we'd potentially
That's a
be
quick
saving.
question. I'll interrupt you, but do you know how much of that's due to we're the only town that does construction and commercial waste? So
I don't think we can be super precise about that, but
that's a big factor.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think we're outliers in two ways. One, in terms of how much waste we're paying to remove.
Yeah.
And I think Jeremy also showed we're outliers in terms of policies. And my best guess, but we don't know, would be the variation in policies we have is what's accounting for the
I didn't realize
variation
that.
in costs.
I originally thought it was mainly just Sherborn in. I didn't realize commercial included all the farm until tonight.
Yeah.
So that's a huge amount. Potentially.
There's potentially tens of thousands of dollars if we were like Carlisle.
Yeah.
The numbers Jeremy showed, cost per household, we're at about $250 a year per household. Carlisle's is $144 per household per year. Even Dover's at $219. So again, I think, there is potential for significant cost savings. That seems really important to me that we take a pretty close look at, given that we're probably going to be asking voters for an override next year. And that suggests, we want to really taking a close look at every budget. And so, I come away from all of this thinking kind of in the direction that I think, we've talked about, that Jeremy ought to put together kind of a set of policy options that we could consider that might make us a little bit more like other towns. And I think will do a lot to, bring down the costs to taxpayers of managing. I also think a policy would be really helpful. You guys are here, you can tell me if this is right or not, but it seems to me it would be really helpful for staff at the transfer station. So there's a clear set of rules for here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed, rather than kind of on the fly decisions when somebody shows up. And, that's an awkward position for someone there to be in, that, well, sorry, you can't, but if there's a clear policy, I think that provides a lot of clarity. I think that would provide a lot of clarity for folks there too. So, I think there's a lot to talk about. I have, views on each individual piece, but my sense is that, we could look to Jeremy and the working group to put together a set of policy options that, might make a conversation more concrete, some specific things in front of us.
It'd be good in terms of the towns too. There's a certain amount of transportation fixed costs and variable costs.
Yeah.
So comparing to Natick and Wellesley and even maybe Medfield or Holliston, they're much bigger towns than Sherborn. So fixed costs is spread out much broader population base.
I mean, as Jeremy said, the cost comparisons are very gross.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, the tons of waste per household.
Right.
I don't think people in Sherborn are that. I think we're all producing more waste than our friends in Carlisle are. But we have a different set of policies.
True myself.
We have a different set of policies. So, one way or another, more waste is coming into the transfer station here.
Well, we have to answer the question about commercial and construction. I'm not sure that that's true, what you just said. I think
Which part, Jeff?
that we're generating more
No,
waste.
I think we're not.
Yeah,
Just the opposite. I'm agreeing with you.
I'm misunderstanding.
We're not. I think we're not generating more waste per household. I think we have a set of policies around. I probably didn't say it right. Around commercial and construction that are leading to these differences.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page.
Tom?
I probably mangled how.
No.
Is this open for questions or?
Yes, but Tom Trainer behind you on the screen has had his hand up for several minutes. So call him.
It's yellow hand.
Thank Thank you, Stephen Chair, for recognizing me. Tom Trainer, 97 Washington Street. This is a great discussion. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and your working group. I was on the recycling committee 25 years ago, and we had similar discussions back then. But I have a specific question for Jeremy. I, of course, like you, were dismayed at the discrepancy with Sherborn, the large tonnage per household compared to peer communities. You know, most of my neighbors, unlike me, who goes to the transfer station every week, most of my neighbors use third party haulers. And I assume those uh, pickups are not covered because my assumption is the third parties are not using the Sherborn transfer station. So has your community, your committee considered the impact of those numbers that are not going to the transfer station?
Yes, so the third party vendor that has the most customers within Sherburne does utilize your transfer station.
Oh, I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Can I interject?
Yes.
Josh Buckler, I'm the owner and operator of Ruane Father. So in Dover, for instance, if we take Dover as an example, they don't have a subcontractor, a third-party contractor who is picking up strictly in the town of Dover like we do strictly in the town of Sherburne. So they're not dumping their solid waste at Dover's recycling facility. So when our numbers are 48% higher than theirs, it's because probably half of their households are being hauled out of town to be dumped. So they're paying for it, they're just paying for it on the individually, not as a town. I could shut my business down tomorrow and you're still, every person I have as a customer is still eligible to use that recycling center. Doesn't mean it's going to change your numbers at all, right? Does that make some sense? To when we look, I don't know anything about Carlisle, but I do know Dover does not have a strictly Dover contractor.
Nora and then Vicky.
Yeah, so actually I own a property in Dover and it's $65 a month for E.L. Harvey to come and to go to the Board of Health because there's permits and applications in there. And they could immediately tell me that out of all of their household, residential, because every address has to be filed with every company. So there are about 8 licensed haulers that are regulated through the Board of Health. And there were 801 residential customers that are being handled by one of those 8 people.
In Dover.
In Dover, and 123 that haulers are servicing. So then there are about 2,000 residential homes in Dover and 6,000 residents. I think Dover is the most, they used to have a single hauler, but they don't. And the hauler is actually Ruane Father, who is in Sherborn. And there used to be Orifice that somebody could choose, but Orifice was bought out by Wind Waste. And they are no longer servicing residential customers in Sherborn. So the people that you might see,
It's untrue.
I called them several times and they said they're not.
They still have several.
They still are servicing them?
They are still servicing.
Yes, they are grandfathered in because Orifice bought.
That's right there gets put on.
Right, I know.
Are they taking new
They're not
customers or
taking
just?
But they're still being serviced.
The grandfathered ones are,
Yes.
but they're not servicing new customers. So, the other thing is, so what happens, what I'm seeing is, you have commercial waste, from some of the food establishments that is being, dumped or what's like, with the, dumped into the trash, I call it trash. And possible in recycling, because but I've been, focused on the tonnage of, so it's just very, the other thing that you haven't really spoken about is most of these, towns are open just on weekends, or Medfield, for example, which has a significantly higher population, is Wednesday and then Friday, Saturday, except for a month of July and extra day in November. And Dover is strictly open Wednesday and Saturday and Sunday. And we're paying nearly $10,000 or $9,500 a month. And I don't understand why COLA is associated with it. for, that to be managed. So I'm just, we could save approximately $48,000 a year just by cutting, to Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sundays, which seem to work for other, towns.
Okay, Vicky?
I just want to clarify, I'm not here for the governance task force. I'm here as a community member. And I've gone over a lot of data that's been public knowledge and created. And there is probably close to 6 figures that we can save from what is currently being spent. And from my perspective, if we don't do that for the town, and since we were warned at town meeting that there was a potential for an override, more than a potential, that we probably will have one, if we can take money from look at all the budgets. I'm not saying this one in particular. I mean, we scrutinize the town in a lot of different areas, the schools, everything. So this is one place that really hasn't been scrutinized for a while. So the audit that was taking place a few years ago wasn't carried forward and scrutinized, because all that we're going through now wouldn't be here if somebody took that audit and went through it with a fine-tooth comb and established some organization from that audit. So that wasn't done. Now we can do that. So if we can do that and save this amount of money for the town, I think that everybody would be very grateful to the select board and to Jeremy for doing that, because I know how hard you all work to get us to a place that's not difficult for the town. So if there's something that some people can do from the data they've gathered, from the observations that have been made, a lot of it is the observations that have been made are real observations. They're not like somebody making it up. People have seen people dump stuff in those dumpsters that shouldn't be dumped. That swap shop is an accident waiting to happen. We have probably, I went in there last weekend and there were 15 cars lined up with people going back and forth and nobody looking to see cars coming through, little kids walking back and forth, and it's an accident waiting to happen. So people are walking around, and little kids were walking around next to doors with glass, next to the trash that had, or construction material that had, things sticking out of it. So I'm really concerned that we're waiting for an accident to happen and it's a liability in the town. That swap shop is a real accident waiting to happen. I went in there and looked at something and somebody from out of town grabbed it out of my hand and said, "Oh, I saw this first." And that happens a lot. So, and they cherry pick, people know from all over Massachusetts to come to this swap shop. They pick stuff up and they go out and they do whatever they want with it. So we're the only ones that let them do it. So net, my conversation with you is, if we can help in any way to look at this in a way to, identify specific items that will be specific, cost effective, and cost cutting items that will help the town's budget going forward. We need to do this. This isn't we have to. We need to do it.
And I'm imploring people to look at, imploring the contractor to, like, why revenue stream is being sacrificed in terms of the metal and people being able to go into the metal container. I have a whole, which I'm not going to be able to present today. I'll hopefully get on another meeting. Photos of every sign that's in the Dover transfer station, and it is forbidden to touch anything in the metal. So I don't know why. And until an attendant says, until I hear from select board that I'm not allowed to tell people that they can't go in there and take the metal, because they're just taking the metal and going to Framingham to salvage and getting that money back. So I've been to Framingham Salvage. I've done a ton of research, and it's frustrating that I'd love to be able to present something.
I have to say, and there's a lot of data that needs to be ferreted through. And Nora and your working group have created all of that.
But I'm not part of the working group.
I know, I said you and them. But, the fact that we spend $115,000 on the contractor and they get a COLA on top of that, I don't understand that. Because they're not an employee of the town. So if they're not an employee, why do they get a COLA? I don't understand why that happens. So there's little things that happen that we need to look at and try to figure out. So I'm hopeful that you will take a lot of this and go forward and really make it a difference.
After the advisory meeting, I was gonna say all-day advisory meeting, but it was only in the morning. Then I was handed an audit report for 2023, which you apparently all had back in June or August of 2023 from an internal audit, and I was asked to look into it. I didn't just wake up and say, oh, I'm just gonna look into the transfer station. So I was asked to look into it, and I started doing research. I public records requests, so I'm not sharing anything that's out of line. And it's just been interesting. I've gone over to Medfield, Dover, the Weston instituted a new whole series on bulky item. If you want to drop something off at the swap shop, if it's a bulky item, for example, a sofa, you still have to pay $30 because it might end up in the tonnage. Mm-hmm. And it's we had a piano. There was a piano that I saw there. I haven't been there since April 2nd. That's a whole other story. But there was a piano at the time, and that ended up going into, and that's what, 400 pounds or something, and what is it, 2,000 pounds per ton. So just you can start doing the math that way. But this is probably I'm going too deep into it. But it's important to look at all these things.
Yes, no, thank you. So, I mean, the way that I see it, we're not here to fix all the problems tonight. I think we're just trying to get an idea of what is the actual data that we have, what are the concerns from the community, and to come up with a sort of framework, an approach for how we're going to address transfer station policy, right? So to me, it does seem clear that we are an outlier in terms of the tonnage per capita, and so therefore the amount of money per capita that is going towards operation of the transfer station in the taxes, right? So that I think is a primary concern of a lot of the people in the room, is essentially reducing the amount being spent per capita or per household as a result of the transfer station. And we can see that there is also an increased tonnage per household that is being paid for compared to other towns. And then we also see that unlike most of the other towns, we do have some limited allowance for construction waste and also for commercial waste, which it's possible our permit does not actually expressly allow. But it does seem like there is at least a correlation here, right? We don't have enough to say for sure that it's causation, and I don't really want to get bogged down in that argument of all of these things that cannot possibly be proven. And somebody says, well, I saw somebody doing this, and said, oh, well, did you consider that maybe that could be happening? And there's no way for anybody to prove that that is the reason why this gap exists.
So we've got video recording there.
Yeah, but you can't prove that the full amount of that tonnage is because this person on video was doing this or that, right? That might be contributing to it, right?
But what about the police establishments in town?
So ultimately, I think to me, what we're looking at is, all right, the transfer station serves the town, and it serves a particular purpose right now, and it operates in a particular way. And I think that what should be of most interest to the residents and taxpayers at large is that the amount of tonnage that is being paid for at the transfer station is being properly assigned to the people who are generating the tonnage, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right. Sure. And so the question now to me is, okay, what does the public want? Does the public want the transfer station to continue operating the way that it does in terms of the types and the amount of solid waste that it accepts? Or does the public want to reduce the actual amount of tonnage that is going through the transfer station? And those would be two different ways that we can reduce the cost per capita, right? Is we can continue to allow the things that we allow, but find a way to capture the cost of that and basically charge the people who are generating that tonnage appropriately, in presumably the way that Dover and Carlisle and Wellesley are doing. We would probably have to amend our permit in order to allow that to happen. But we could find some way to say, all right, well, you can continue to bring your construction waste, you can continue to bring your commercial waste, but it's going to start costing you now. I'm going to figure out, approximately how much are you bringing in, and we're going to charge you for that. Or do we find ways through policy to say, all right, we're simply not allowing this anymore because we shouldn't be doing it, and it'll reduce the tonnage and thereby reducing the taxes. And so to me, that's the question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't even know that I have an opinion about which of those strategies is appropriate. I think that we need to get more public input, right? And I think that we need to lay out the situation so that people understand what it is, right? I think we need to sort of check with Ruane and Father, check with the DPW and see, all right, operationally, what is actually feasible here, right? And would new policies actually be something that are easily enforceable and are practical with the way that our transfer station is set up, right? Things like we're going to say, all right, you're going to bring a pickup truck in. Now we're going to charge you $100 per load. Well, you need a way to be able to accept $100 from them, and that money's going to have to come back to the town, right? So that's going to get complicated probably. But again, like those are logistical things to work out later, after we've decided, all right, well, what is the purpose of the transfer station? What role does it have in this community? And now we set up policies to formalize that, and then we can set up procedures to make it happen, right? Does that all make sense? So I feel like that's where we're at right now, is that we've collected a lot of information. I think there's probably still more information to collect. But I think that one of the most important things is to figure out, what does the general public actually want? And like I said in our last meeting, this is the difficult part, is because probably 98% of the people who are generating solid waste that ends up in the transfer station have never been to a select board meeting, have never been to town meeting, have never filled out a town survey. They just moved here because it's got good schools, and then they're like, who's going to take our waste? Oh, Ruane and Father, somebody operates into, great, take my waste now. And that's it. That's as far as they've thought about it. And I feel like there's an element of outreach and survey that we need to do. And I'm not really sure what the best way to do that is.
I agree with everything you said, Steve. I would just add that at some point, we, with the help of people who work at the transfer station and the public, need to figure out whether, if we decide, for example, that some commercial waste, this or that is okay, this is not okay, I think we need to review the physical capabilities of the transfer station that we have, to see, if any, what changes would make it work well within the parameters of what the public really wants physically.
Yeah.
Just following on that, again, I think Jeremy and the working group could, in the framework you suggested, put together, here's kind of what things might look like, and here are the logistical challenges to, let's get the permit changed and let's allow commercial and construction waste and charge for it. Not the right time to the initiative. I think there are some significant logistical challenges to actually making that work. But I think we could explore that and lay out, here's what that might look like, and here's what the logistical challenges are, and then also lay out a set of policies that would be more towards the second. And I think with a concrete set of things, we could have a more focused discussion. And I take your point about the importance of community input. All the obvious challenges that you mentioned, having a set of conversations over a number of select board meetings gets us at least a start. And hopefully, now that people know this is under discussion, it'll generate a bit more interest and a bit more focus from the community on the conversation.
Yep. All right. I don't feel like I resolved anything tonight, but at least I feel like we might have a little bit of a direction. I don't know if Sean and Josh, if you have any other input about the sort of the process that you see unfolding before us right now.
I'll just say that the way you laid it out to me makes more sense than anything else I can think of. I think that, polling the public as to what they would like their transfer station to be able to do is certainly the way. This is the public's transfer station, so let them decide what needs to happen, or at least have some input.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can't just compare apples to apples with Dover or Carlisle. We're a different animal. There's different policies in place now for what we do. So,
Great. Thank you.
I'd just point out, if you want to wake everyone up, just wait a couple months because we're going to shut the place down. Tear the entire place apart, and it's going to wake everyone up real quick. But we're going to struggle to keep it running.
Well, this is while doing the electric upgrades.
Opportunity coming up to, we're going to pretty much clean the place out because we need a lot of room to operate the way we're going to have to operate without the compactors. So
How long?
that's going to seem pretty disruptive, and everyone's going to wonder what's happening. So
How long is that going to take?
How long?
3 to 5 weeks.
Okay. That'll be interesting.
It's a little bit of a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
The idea is it still needs to operate and self-finish.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be operating fairly differently. That's sure.
Yeah. But
It'll be limited. The swap shop's going to have to be closed down during that time.
but afterwards, everything's going to go back where it was, right? And we'll go ideally back to operating the way that it currently does.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Some things won't go back with it because they're in the way. The equipment will go back where it is. But there's a lot of containers. The parking's a mess. The goal was to fix that already, but we're a small group and we have a lot of work to do. So
Yeah.
I can only work like 5 days a week on the transfer station. That's what the first couple of weeks.
Sorry, Sean.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just would implore that, of course, people are going to want to be able to dump at will anything they want. I mean, so to take a public, I think people have to look at the numbers. You have to look at and make an executive decision. You're the CEOs of this company of Sherborn. And, to be polling this and polling that, at some point, you have to make a decision. Like, I'm actually imploring you right now to say, nobody should be taking metal that's accounts receivable into the town and instruct whoever the attendant is there to say, no more metal, people taking stuff that's money to the town. Where are the deposits going to, the audit report, it's not going to be appropriate to get into it now. I would like to get on the agenda next time, or maybe do an advisory. I just wanted, the audit report had a lot of issues that were out there. I don't know why advisory never got it back in 2023. But anyway, it's just, I would really implore you to look at that. I mean, of course, people want to just go and dump their whole basement out there. Why wouldn't anybody? Remember the kitchen cabinet thing I brought up on advisory?
Yeah, and I don't want to have much more of a back and forth, but I got to respond to one thing. It's called a recycle center.
Transfer station.
The goal is to recycle, reuse, and reduce.
But when you have a person coming in there and then going to bring themselves.
Well, I understand. I don't know that that's actually happening, but if you walk in there and there's a perfectly good shovel on top of that pile, you should grab it. I mean, it might be 13 cents worth of scrap.
Yeah, but
that
it's
the town
ours.
was gonna get.
But
The
it's
best bike my kids ever got came from on top of that dumpster. And if anyone in here thinks a kid shouldn't get a bike that's sitting on top of that dumpster, that otherwise should have actually gone to the swap shop, but the attendant was too busy rummaging through other stuff. That's the whole purpose of having a recycle center. Of course, it shouldn't have gone to Freeman himself if it got scrapped. That's what we're doing there.
But
So,
if you take a visit to
It's
Dover,
not illegal. It shouldn't be considered illegal that someone's taking something for their
but if they're
kid.
not,
But how do you do?
Okay. Let's stop.
Enough with this topic, guys. Come on.
We're not prepared to make a decision on that particular item, right? Marion?
No, but as part of this whole review, I think it's clear that just looking at some of these regulations in other towns, some of them are really quite clear, easy to understand, reasonable. And I think we need to look at what the rules of the road are.
Yeah.
As well as everything else.
Yeah.
So that'll be part of the discussion.
Marion, I actually thought Lincoln's policy was particularly
I did too.
clear
I thought it looked
could
really good.
potentially be a useful starting point.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think over the next several meetings, over the next month or two, I think that that's going to be our job, is to try to figure out what the policies should be and then find a way to implement them, you know. And maybe the policy will be that nobody is allowed to take any metal out. I don't think that the town is going to go under because over the next 2 months, people aren't taking metal out, you know. So we need to develop a policy, and you know, it's going to be an informed policy, and it could very well have what you want, and then we will enforce it afterwards. But we're not going to make that decision tonight. Okay. Anything else on this? Pretty clear what your next steps are going to be.
Thank you. I think I have my marching orders, and I'll gather the working group again and dig back in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Land acquisition.
Back to land acquisition and discussion of land acquisition committee deliberation.
Yeah, I had asked them, is it put on the agenda to tonight? So that we can talk about the membership.
Okay.
If we're in appointment season now to, you know, reappoint people and get people through committees. And I just wanted to get some direction from the select board about, you know, reaching out to some of these, like the planning board and conservation commission, groundwater protection, you know, to see if they're going to have somebody that they can appoint as a representative.
Okay, so what is it? We have one, planning board has one, Concom is one,
Correct.
groundwater protection one, open space one, and then two by the moderator.
Right. I did hear from Sam Nelson today. He has volunteered to be the representative on the open space
Open
committee.
space, okay.
So could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
The committee has members at some point in time,
Had
We
members.
have members, yeah.
and I think some of them think they're still members. And it would be useful, for me at least, to see what you have done in other circumstances. Here's the list of current members. What is a term up? Because if somebody is in the middle of a term and then they're not up for reappointment this time around, for us to say, we're removing you.
I believe all their terms have expired.
Yes, they
Yeah, there was one
Yeah.
still active, but up until 2026. Oh, that's right now. So, but the one whose term has just expired, it makes sense to ask if the committee was sort of non-functional
correct.
for the last several months. So I think it is a good idea to reach out to the people who were on it and to see if any, would like to be reappointed. But we only have the authority to appoint one member.
Yeah,
Who was our most recent appointee?
I think the select board representative,
Warren
I think it was
Wheelwright.
Warren Wheelwright, but I think the last time I talked to him, that was the way back that I don't think that he was.
It was who?
Warren Wheelwright.
real right. He was on there.
Yeah.
Mary and I were both on this land acquisition committee. We were both appointed by the moderator. At least I was appointed by the moderator.
Yeah, I was appointed by the planning board.
Yeah.
Eric Johnson, I think, appointed by the moderator too.
I think you're right, though. We do have to kind of start fresh, but
Yeah.
just,
I think it makes sense to just reach out to each
Reach out
of
to
those
them, okay.
committees and be like, hey, we are looking to refresh the land acquisition committee. You could always let them know who their most recent appointee was, because it's entirely possible that they no longer remember. It might, that board itself may have turned over quite a bit since the last time they appointed
Yeah.
someone, so
Yeah.
so they might not even know. So just to
Good.
remind
That's what I
them.
needed to hear.
And obviously also to tell Mike Jamo.
Yes, and
He might not be aware. Is he aware that he has to?
Yes, he knows. He knows. I talked about
Does he
it.
know? Okay.
Yeah, but that's one of my points is, if you look at this list, the moderator often doesn't know who should be on that committee. It's a little bit unusual to me. You know, I got appointed by the moderator, but they had no clue what I would be doing, and I ended up getting thrown off the committee because Mary Wolf found out I was on advisor.
I was just gonna think, I'm sure Mike would be happy to appoint you again.
Yes, I know. So I'm not sure. I mean, Paul can advise us on how this was structured, but it just seems like most of these people who nominate someone know who would be qualified, and the moderator would have to do some work to know who's qualified. In my personal first-hand experience.
The moderator appointments are kind of like a safety valve.
Yeah,
So let's say other boards and committees
yeah,
appoint people who are not active people,
yes,
who are
yeah,
not wanting to do the work.
yeah,
Then the moderator should be looking at that saying, I need to appoint some activists
okay, yeah,
who are ready to roll up their sleeves.
yeah, that makes sense.
So we should be working with the moderator and we are, as the responsible board in town for volunteers generally,
Yeah,
should look at who's being appointed.
yeah,
We want a committee that's actually going to be interested.
well, this was on town meeting, obviously, the land acquisition committee that we talked about. you know,
Right.
So it's timely.
So we'll see. So are you suggesting that we start by appointing one person?
Well, I mean, we should anyways, right?
We have to.
But in the meantime, we should get the word out to all those other committees.
I will reach out to him.
So that, they can start thinking about it and appointing somebody.
We should advertise. We have a policy to
Yeah,
advertise
Yeah.
open
Yes,
positions.
I need to do that too.
Yes, yeah.
I haven't done any.
Yeah, Douglas reach out to
Mm-hmm.
the committees.
What, the last time that the committee was formed or there were openings, did you advertise it? And like, so,
I believe I did.
so then it's like,
It's been a long time since.
okay, planning board appoints somebody. Is there an advertisement that says that the planning board is appointing one member or?
Well, usually I put the charge when I send out the press release, it includes the charge, it'll
I see.
say it'll be a member, and I would put in there that the select board are looking for someone to
I see.
represent.
And then are you the contact person in the advertisement regardless of which board or committee? So then you could just reroute somebody to be like, do you know anyone on the planning board? And then maybe you talk to them and see if they want to appoint you.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the only thing I would clarify though, Stephen, is that you need different functional disciplines for land acquisition.
Yeah.
So the reason why those boards are listed is you probably need a member or a similar type person from each of those specific boards
Yeah.
to fill out. We're basically identifying all the properties in town, and we created a database, and we valued them in terms of recreation, in terms of water resources, and everything else. So you need diverse functional expertise.
Yeah.
On the board.
Yeah.
So usually on the planning board, one of their own members, there would be.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
One of their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if we put out, sorry to interrupt, but if we put out an announcement from the select board, we only appoint one
That's
person.
correct.
We'd be only announcing for that person.
Exactly.
Yes.
But we're creating a pool that's would be available for the moderator to look at. Would be available for the boards and committees to take a look at to see if this.
So you should still contact all of those boards and let them know.
Yeah, I
But
would
also
still
at the same time, also put out the advertisement so that.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that all for that one then?
Yes, I think so.
Mary, do you want to be on?
Actually, I enjoyed being on the land acquisition.
Yeah,
I did. But I'm
Jeff, do you
spread
want to be on
way
the land
too
acquisition
thin.
committee?
Well, let's talk about it. Other things we're
I mean,
doing.
those of us who have done it, we have a lot of other things.
Marion created a huge database of those. We reviewed that, the different different stratus of properties. We started going down below 20 acres, right down to 15 or 10 acres,
Mhm. But
and the 61A properties and all that stuff.
Okay. Discussion of sending comment letter to the planning board regarding special permit application for Meadowbrook Commons.
Just to speed things up, it seems like a no-brainer. So do we have to spend a half an hour discussing it? And
I don't know, should we?
Well, this is the planning board, but this is different than what you mentioned earlier in the meeting about sending a letter to the mayor of Framingham or the Framingham.
Oh, that's totally different.
Yeah.
No, I know it's different, but is that something we're gonna talk about tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the planning board's deadline for getting comments?
They're starting on the 9th.
Heidi's on set if you have any.
Oh, Heidi's here. Heidi.
Heidi. Oh boy, she's actually listening.
Yes, woke me up. So the comments are due June 10th because we had to make it 35 days by our bylaws. The hearing is opening June 9th. We're told Brothers going to do a presentation. We don't really expect there's going to be much deliberation other than outlining what the plans are going to be for the procedures. But we would like to start getting something in from the boards, even if it's going to be, we're going to be evaluating something as we go along and may have more input, but just so for the record, there is input from the select board.
Okay.
Heidi, do you need actual formal letters from boards and committees?
I think an email is fine, that the select board spoke and is, willing to do this. I don't think we need a formal letter of support or anything else. That was already done on a lot of the projects that went to town meeting for.
You like evaluations and stuff.
Right. It's just if there's particular comments the select board have on certain areas they'd like the planning board to focus on, or, something working with North Sherborn Water and Sewer District, any comments like that, I think would be fine, but I don't think it needs to be a formal letter.
Okay. Edmund.
Just wanted to remind everyone that the Meadowbrook Commons is under the reason that the comments are going to the planning board is because it's the EA zoned parcel. It's the property that the town is supported and it then falls under local zoning. It's not a 40B. It's the local zoning with the planning board jurisdiction. So the planning board is reviewing this. So that's why, that's why an email would be fine to kind of comment when it's a 40B, then we ask for, as a policy in the town when we've had those scenarios where you want the boards to give a more formal letter because then that packet is going to the state agency, whereas this is an internal process.
So I've read all that stuff.
What stuff?
This whole
yeah
thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty good presentation and we should be supporting it.
Yeah.
And I don't see a need for us to say anything critical about it at this point. There's nothing in here that's bad. I didn't identify anything that would merit our singling out something and say, don't do this. And it's part of a long-term goal for it to move this project along with the other Coolidge part of it too. So why not send the letter?
Right.
So I wanted to make a motion to have the chair sign a letter, preferably prepared by Jeremy.
I was going to nominate Marion.
I have another couple letters I'm doing, so I'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah, I know you do.
So let's spread the joy. How about one of you guys, for example?
You're just the nexus on which every aspect of this converges right on you. It's like select board, this project in particular, water district, planning board. It's like you have had your hands in all of it, variously. So I don't think there's anybody that knows about it, really.
So she's been great, but Jeremy and the chair can sign.
Yeah.
No, that works as well.
So that was a motion.
Right. I mean, I think we could put something in the letter that shows we actually read that whole thing. It was not an easy application to get through. Incidentally, we've already approved twice a preliminary development plan. A revised one was approved in 2023. This is the definitive development plan that needs a special permit. And that's what this final review is about by the planning board, they will give a special permit after reviewing the whole definitive plan. And I mean, the one thing that I would mention in such a letter to the planning board, just to show that we've read it, is that part of the property that is part of this development, but not within the EA zone, is the connector to the open space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that the town have, if not control of that open space land to connect it to Peters Hill, at least an easement that assures continual access
Trails.
through that land
Yeah, yeah.
for
absolutely.
trails. So, you know, it would be worth just mentioning that. And they intend to do that. But still.
Doesn't hurt to reinforce it.
The one thing that's kind of highlighted in the materials provided by the developer is a need for those intermunicipal agreements.
Mm-hmm.
They say that at several points. They put together what the timeline is, and what the different steps that need to be taken. That leaps off the page. That you need to nail those two pieces down.
Yeah, Jeremy will address that in 2 minutes.
That's a couple of our letters.
Okay, there's a
Yeah, that's
motion.
exactly right. That's just on that.
All right, I'll second it. Moved and seconded, all in favor? All right. All right, now regarding letter to Framingham.
Yeah, so, Marion, Sean and I met with mayor's office and city solicitor's office and Public Works Water Division, this morning. We haven't met for some time, because there was some water analysis being conducted by, Framingham, water consultant that not completed. And that informed the development agreement between Brothers Kennedy Wilson and Framingham, which is agreed to in substance. It's final ratification by the city council, but that now allows us to move forward with the IMA supply water from Framingham to the North Sherborn Water and Sewer District. We talked about that this morning, and there's several components, several details that we need to hash out, but the mayor's chief of staff laid out a timeline such that this item could get on the city council's agenda in 2 weeks. They have a process where they would refer that to a finance subcommittee of the council, and then it would come back at another meeting not long after for the council to adopt. So he suggested that a letter of support would come from the select board to be included in that package that goes to the city council. That meeting they hope to have in 2 weeks. So
I drafted.
Great news that it's.
You already drafted the letter?
I did. I drafted it this afternoon. Did you get it, Jeremy?
Can you just send that one to the planning board as well?
But I didn't put it on letterhead. I just put the B in.
Drafted a letter.
And you can change it if you.
So I'll move that we approve Marion sending a letter
As amended by Jeremy.
as amended by Jeremy.
For jointly,
For
yeah.
the chair's signature.
Yeah. I was like, you want me to sign it though, right?
Now, can I ask a quick question though? You remember their finance director from Framingham was pushing back because they didn't get the funds to connect the Framingham houses that would be affected by the trunk line. Has that been resolved?
That has been resolved, yeah. So those.
It has been?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those several properties that are in Sherborn that receive Framingham water currently.
Yeah.
Would be tied over to receive water service within.
No, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking, the houses in Framingham, they said that didn't have the money because there's houses that are in Framingham that will also be connected because the main has to come partway. You remember this, Marion? They couldn't.
The houses are in Sherborn.
Huh? No, I'm not talking about houses in Sherwood. When we met with the mayor of Framingham, they got a brand new finance director, and he was concerned about the town of city of Framingham having the money to connect the house. The trunk line is gonna pass houses that are in Framingham also, not Sherborn houses.
Right.
And he was concerned about having the funds to connect their properties that are along the route to the new line.
Sorry, Jeff, I don't recall that. The current water main in Framingham goes all the way up to the town line. In Framingham up to the town line.
Yeah, but I thought we were putting in partially a new line.
Actually,
that will replace an existing line within Sherborn that feeds.
So there's no new pipe in Framingham, is that what you're saying?
no, it turns out they don't need to replace the pipe in Framingham.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because then we were talking about
Yeah,
that.
you're
with that many
absolutely
times.
right.
Yeah.
There was talk of having to move that pipe because of sewer
And
might
depth.
be coming, but now we're not doing.
We're not doing sewer there, but it was depth,
Yeah.
not aerial distance, but the depth of the line.
Yeah, that was when we were having the conversation of having both water and sewer from Framingham.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's moved now because we're.
Yeah.
only
That was a
getting
big stumbling block, though.
Yeah, it was more big.
Yes.
All
right.
Sewer.
I'm glad.
The Framingham sewer system in that area is old and not adequate, so there was a significant improvement that would have been needed for the district to connect into.
All right, that's good.
So Jeremy, what I sent you, is that what they had in mind?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I can put it on letterhead, maybe make a few tweaks and bring it.
Yeah.
Even for signature.
So I made a motion. And hopefully that's a second.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And related to the IMA with data for sewer, that is in place. So we just need to finalize now the IMA for water supply and Framingham, which, based on our meeting this morning, we have Framingham's attention and may have meetings before city council in 2 weeks.
Great.
And they suggested that a representative from Sherborn would be good to have at that council meeting when it comes up. So
Okay.
hopefully Jeremy can go.
Are those usually during the day or in the evening?
They're evening meetings,
Okay.
Tuesday evenings.
Okay.
When we know when it's scheduled, I'll let you know. Okay. That'd be good to have me there along with myself.
Okay. All right, consent agenda.
Move approval of the
Second.
consent agenda.
All in favor?
One little modification. It lists on the consent agenda 3
Yes.
licenses, and there's a fourth
Fourth license, I have to put it on here.
for June 6th.
Yes, I will add it
At the
last moment.
1858 house.
I'll add that.
So move approval of 4 licenses, the payroll.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, select board reports?
I have a report.
Yep.
So the town had a Memorial Day celebration. And it was really nice to have Dan Sickle there, Jack Waldron there. It's a pretty good turnout. In spite of torrential rains, he had to move it indoors. But I wanted to give recognition to the fact that we had most of the board there.
And we had 80 people there, because I worked with Diana to put the whole thing together. That's how we got it. The one thing we didn't do is we didn't let Jeannie know to put it on the town website to communicate it. Some people still showed up at the cemetery. So that was the only thing I would do different. But we had a hybrid event and we had a high school band there and roughly 80 people. Which is pretty good, pretty well attended.
Yeah.
And we had ice cream sandwiches for about 160 people. I think.
We got 2.
I only ate one.
Any other select board reports?
That was Mike Kickham's daughter, who, because he used to do this for 50 years or however long, who brought the ice cream.
The ice cream was delicious.
Lisa Kickham.
All right, town administrator reports.
Sure, yeah, I had one, and Heidi's still on. wanted to give an announcement that Heidi applied for, and we were successful in having Sherborn designated as a rural and small town housing choice community. That designation rewards municipalities that have produced certain rates of or amounts of new housing units in the last 5 years, and that have adopted best practices relating to housing production that will sustain 21st century workforce and increase access and opportunity for Massachusetts residents. So with that designation, we become one of 92 communities in the Commonwealth, but a third of the communities that have that designation, and it gives us preferred scoring on various state grant programs, including complete streets. You get extra points, and there's also a dedicated funding source for planning grants and the like. So just wanted to shout out to Heidi and thank her for that work.
Great. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks. Thanks, Heidi.
I'm sure she's doing.
Heidi.
Peanut gallery, thank you.
Anything you wanted to add, Heidi?
No, the designation's good for 5 years. So we actually just squeaked by the criteria this year, and I'm happy we got it locked in for the next 5 years. So thank you.
Hopefully 5 years from now, we'll have added quite a bit more housing.
Yeah.
Heidi, does this give us a leg up for Housing Works grants or
Yes.
It's for a
MassWorks
lot of
grants?
different grants. It's one of the things that you can check off that you have it, and they actually had just finally added a special category for rural and small town, which we met. And it is housing choice grants. It's things if we want to go for, our master plan update, as well as funds on sidewalks or other programs. It's a wide variety, but it should really help.
And even related grants that don't have funds, it allows you to get additional points, like complete streets, for instance. You get additional points as you're out in community. So you'll score better for those competitive grant programs. That was great. Very helpful. Thank you, Heidi. Couple other announcements. Finally under contract with consultant that'll be doing the study and design of the village center transportation improvements. And they'll be conducting some traffic counts the week of June 8th. They're doing that so they get the counts during school. School's still in session, so the data is more accurate, counts for more volume. And we're working with them to schedule a kickoff meeting with the working group that we had when we chose them, and kind of envision them, that working group, to continue on informing the select board of progress. And there'll be a lot more outreach to stakeholders and the public in the coming months now that we have the consultant on board. Update on the FY27 state budget. The Senate version of the budget includes $50,000 for PFAS treatment for Pine Hill School. So I mentioned that in the last meeting. That has stuck in the Senate version of the budget. Hopefully it sticks with the rectified House and Senate version.
That's about half the cost of the actual
About
project.
half the cost of the actual treatment. So if we secure that, we'll see if we need to ask for some additional capital funds next time meeting, or if there will be any funds available for surplus in the water treatment current capital projects. And an update on the environmental bond bill that has come out of the Senate, or the so-called Mass Ready Act. That bond bill, multi-year bond bill, it includes funding for various state programs, but it also includes some dedicated funding for communities. And we were successful in getting $400,000 included to implement the watershed-based plan for Farmland. So hopefully that sticks again when the House rectifies it, and that would help you implement all of the recommendations that came forward in the watershed-based plan study for Farmland.
Great. Would that cover all of it?
That would.
Okay. Great. Anything else?
One other just announcement thing, not necessarily political, but James Arena DeRosa, who represents us, he's up for reelection. He's having a campaign event on June 27th. A barbecue event on June 27th. So interested.
Wait, Heidi's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, I had one more issue. I meant to bring it up to Jeremy to bring tonight. I'm doing some roundtable discussions that would be part of the zoning bylaw outreach as well as the MVP 2.0 program outreach. And then I'm also trying to incorporate some of the TIP grant that he just mentioned to start that. And the first group have reached out to is the farming and equestrian community, where I've sent letters out to the farms. I don't know if anyone will really show up, but we're going to make these efforts to try and do these. The first one's going to be June 2nd from 7:30 to 8:30 hybrid. Looking to have some informal discussions with different groups in town. The next one I want to look at is the business community, maybe home-based businesses, and then throughout the summer, different groups. So I'll keep forwarding information to the select board, and happy to hear comments or feedback.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for Heidi, but before you go away, Heidi.
Yes.
What's the agenda? What's the purpose of, say, the meeting with the farms and stables? I mean,
so the meeting I'm trying to do is I've had feedback from several people in the agriculture committee. They don't like regulations. They feel we're over-regulating. Just the stormwater one that came in, they didn't feel it should apply to some of the farms. I've also had feedback from various residents that get upset when a farm has moved to a residential neighborhood and there have been smells and odors of things generated, yet there is nothing we can really do to enforce it. So I kind of wanted to see if we can get some discussions on balancing neighborhood concerns with farming community concerns. I've had concerns mentioned to me about the permitting process. The business process is just very onerous in town, that you have to go through so many steps trying to get something done versus some other towns are easier. So the focus I'm trying to reach out is to give people a chance to come and voice these concerns, and if we can get some collaborative discussion going.
Thanks.
Okay. Paul?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right.
That's enough.
You're going to speak